So then we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services that we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Tzayelic lineage. So then we can understand the time of the end. As per Yeshayahu the prophet, we find then a layer of understanding of the spring feast, autumn feast, and also the returning of the cities of the Messiah laid waste for many centuries. And the 61st chapter makes a reference of the holy cities returning and also the inclusion of the Gentiles in the plan of the restoration period started in 2010. As we understand, if you are a person that you fear God and understand the holy instructions, we should be very concerned in what plans then the nations should be obviously investing their time on, because United States and Great Britain, they had their time. During the time of deceit, as we understand from 1009 to 2009, you find in 800 years granted for Great Britain and then 200 years granted for America, roughly. 2010, their time has ended. So then we've entered the time of the restoration period, where then you find very precisely then Yeshayahu 1:8 with the 61st chapter, you find Daniel then the 11th chapter and also the 12th chapter, sections of it, and also a couple of chapters later where then you understand an Apocrypha. Obviously the United States is trying again to take a hold of the world and trying to get a hold of the system, and it's not going to work. The system already was tried once in March. They went to China, they came back, they tried to go against China, didn't work. Japan then print out a lot of money, didn't work. They are over there in China trying to make a deal of a bilateral relationship. United States has wasted thousands upon thousands upon thousands and then did not work either. Now we have then Australia trying then to revitalize their industry, and they can't compete with China. So let's try to understand this specific understanding of the inclusion of the Gentiles, because it's not based from the 1,000 years of deceit, but the new plan already set from more than 2,500 years ago. Let's understand where it starts. Daniel then gives us very specific understanding from the viewpoint of the prophet. Only after the people would go to and fro for 1,000 years, then would come a peak of knowledge for the reasons of trade, where then trade would be obviously under scrutiny of high knowledge, meaning computer. So then what do you find today? Do you find the nations trying to come together again with the same junky system of the 1,000 years of deceit? It's not going to work. Evaluate then the companies closing in many countries, and then nations are trying then to get more money printed for the purposes of stimulating the economy. It's not going to work. Mainly because no nation can compete with China. China is the dragon of the Apocrypha. No nation can come against China. China is obviously the factory of the world, and they want a schedule of mining and also then infrastructure. Whatsoever the nations are doing is not going to work. It didn't work before, and it won't work later. Then not only this, but nations, they find themselves, those who are with the United States, obviously they are against God Himself, because He has stated very plainly His people would get mixed for 1,000 years, and then later the system obviously would be then refurbished from the time of the first anointing given then to Ishmael, and the second anointing given then obviously to Yitzhak. Both of them combined makes the whole anointing. So then we understand Ezekiel 37th chapter. Those stick of authority must be granted, and it starts with the manufacturing of China. They must lead the market. Thus far, PNG or Papua New Guinea has lots of money under the sea. They want obviously money for their work. Thus far, there is no deal going on, because unfortunately Australia did not have enough strength to go against the United States, and unfortunately are ruining their economy. We in Brazil also, we are ruining our economy. So then the next 30 months, we already found a couple of years ago where then IMF and also even the Prime Minister of Israel mentioned the United States and its economy would not last for more than 5 years, and this was obviously recorded. So then there is only 30 months for this system then, thank God, to break at once, so then China's system can be implemented and then negotiations can be started. Thus far, the United States is becoming an absolutely a joke throughout the world because they only want to expand their military and they have no industry. The Creator already mentioned 1,000 years of deceit, and then it would come the time of the restoration, and the United States is trying to force itself into the system, and it's not going to work. And nations joining up with the US, they will be lost. So let's understand these very clearly, because nations are trying to take a detour from the holy instructions, and they are going to have a very big surprise in the future. So then, obviously we find ourselves studying these holy documents, where then the 11th chapter of Daniel explains very precisely then the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, namely then the Soviet Union in Africa. We understand the riches of the DRC or Congo is already compromised, and those are for the exclusive use of China. We understand this because the prophet himself said regarding Yeshayahu chapter 1:8, "Woe to the land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia." If you understand tabernacling from the original manuscripts, you find in the original translation is specifying then Cush. Cush is the place where then tabernacling is going to be at. If you are not familiar with tabernacling from the original manuscripts, then the prophet mentioned, then woe to the land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, its southern section of the place, namely DRC. Who was Daniel? Daniel was a tradesperson. He was regarded as a person doing trade for the kingdom. Woe to the land beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, woe to DRC, because they have so much and so many areas of riches. Those are for the exclusive usage of China, because China and Soviet Union must be united very strongly, where then China is the factory of the world, and China and the Soviet Union then combining their militaries, they are providing then security for the partners doing trade with China, thus direct trade and without USD. The plan is very simple. China already outlined very precisely then infrastructure and mining. So then China can start doing their work, and then nations can start then dig out those mines, so then they can receive money for their mining. But thus far it has placed aside because they have chosen to do the same old crap as they used to do for 1,000 years, never worked. So let's observe then the next 30 months, because it's going to be very interesting. You find that stupid nations such as the United States and also Brazil and also Australia combining themselves, trying to come up with their own economical system outside of the holy instructions, and it's not going to work. But thank God for Bitcoin system, because it provides a system with direct trade and no usage of USD anymore. So nations, they do have a choice. So then, as we wait then for the time of the end, and then this miserable USD enslaving type of monetary system where the US then is not producing. If you make a study, you find USA is not producing. And they have shortages of electricity. They do not have infrastructure. The Alaska pipelines, they are absolutely outdated. And they are expanding their military for no reason, and then they manipulate the price of the USD. And then the nations are purchasing and make themselves worse yet than ever. So let's wait then until we find more information, because if you study the holy instructions, you understand China has the proper plan for this time of the end. So let's wait until they're finished their military maneuvers, and then let's verify what China then obviously is going to come up with. Obviously, they're going to then increase the quality of their products, and they're going to drop the prices, and then the other nations won't be able to compete. The plan is very simple. The more nations they come against China, the more they make greater job, greater work, greater quality, and they drop the price and drive those people out of trade. And with Bitcoin becomes even more interesting because people, they have an option. So please stay tuned, much more coming up.